Why am I nervous? This is my second episode. Okay, I should be used to it by now. Maybe not. This is gonna be so good. Hey y'all, welcome back, or welcome to the Pickle Jar. This is What's the Dill? I'm your host, Mackenzie Pickle. I'm so excited. Y'all, our second episode. This is great. Thank you so much for all the support on episode 1. I'd love to hear feedback and, recommendations for movies. Earlier I was making a TikTok doing like movie rankings, and I realized just how many movies I don't know that I feel like a lot of people have seen, like classics or even just like cult favorites type of thing. Like, I don't know, maybe I should devote some time, maybe like once a month or something, do like a classic or something and talk about it. I think it could be fun, maybe. Let me know what you think. I'm so excited for today's episode. As I kind of said in the last episode, I'm a little bit of a mythical beast. Little bit is pushing it. I'm a huge mythical beast. I love Rhett Link. I love Good Mythical Morning. I love their projects. Buddy System Season 1 and 2. I actually just saw them on tour, on the Good Mythical tour, and I met them. I sobbed for like 30 minutes after I met them. It was a dream come true. I love them so much, and I wanted to review their most recent project that they did. It's a series. It was called Wonderhole. Whether you're a fan or not of theirs, I think that Wonderhole is something that everyone should watch, just because it definitely pushes the bounds of what we know as entertainment and what we expect when we click on something to watch. And so, I do film reviews, and I talked about last episode, I do TV shows, but I also want to do YouTube series. A lot of people go to YouTube for their content, and I'm one of them. I love YouTube. I think it's such a great place, and it makes creating so accessible for people all over the world. So I love that about it. I've always loved YouTube. Reminder, leave a comment on what you want me to review next, and let's jump right into it. There are 6 episodes of Wonderhole. The series is on the Rhett Link channel on YouTube. I could talk about the entire series for hours, but we don't have that kind of time. But today, I'm going to give kind of like a general review of the entire series, but go more in depth to my 2 favorite episodes. Episode 1, it's called We Took the World's Most Expensive First Class Flight. It was such a great way to open the series. So it starts with sort of like a typical Rhett and Link content style, them talking directly to the camera, directly to the fans. It's like vlog style, which is pretty cool. You think a lot of YouTubers, it's like kind of what you expect almost. They're talking directly to the camera, and they're doing something creative. They're making like a travel vlog, but they've built a first class suite in an airplane. So they're not actually on an airplane, but they've like created the whole environment like they are. Like those really popular videos of people being like, this was my flight to wherever, This was a great way to give the audience a sense of familiarity, and it's good to give that to make them interested. It's like it drew me in, and I was invested. You think for a little bit that it is just going to be a regular vlog, and you're like a whole series, and they're just doing what they normally do. But then it twists, which is what I love so much about them and this series, is they give you a little comfortability, give you something that you're familiar with, and then like, boom, different, completely different. It turns into them being stranded on a desert island and having like this crisis, and it was so hilarious and so much fun. It was just kind of like the essence of them, of being like, they're stranded away from everything, but they're still being creative and they're still being passionate, and it was really fun. In true Rhett Link fashion, they have the song, they have their goofiness, their friendship. It was so good. I think it served its purpose really well as the opener for this series. So next, I'm going to skip over episode 2 because it's one of my favorites, and I want to go more in depth with that. So moving on to episode 3, which was titled, We Went to Extremes to Drink a Cloud. If I was going to rank all the episodes, which I'm not, but if I was going to rank them, probably would be at the bottom for me. Not saying that it wasn't good. I really enjoyed that. Like I said, I enjoyed the whole series. But this one, I don't know. It was just, I liked the other ones better. Just the other episodes just felt like they had a little bit more substance to me. I enjoyed seeing like the flashbacks of like what they were like as kids kind of, and that sort of childlike nature was throughout the episode. It was really cool to see them sort of just act like kids, the skydiving was fun, and trying to figure out the logistics of drinking a cloud. Like, it was funny and cute and just kind of like full of that child whimsy. There's not much more depth, at least that I got out of it. Again, this is just my opinion. I do think overall it was a pretty good episode. Like I said, the other ones sort of rank higher for me. Fog Chasers was a hit, though. Don't even play with me. They made another song in this episode, and it is so good. So thank you for that song. Like I said, I didn't get just that much depth out of it, but that's okay because the rest of the series sort of delivers on that, and it's nice to have a little bit of a breather. Next episode, episode 4, we chopped down a tree with a peanut butter axe. First of all, they're back in North Carolina. I just love the nostalgia of seeing them sort of like back at their roots, back at where they met and all that stuff. I'm from the South, and so anytime they talk about stuff like that or reference it, or even just like this, make a video where they're physically back there, it always makes me happy because I'm like, like they get it. Like they, I may not have grown up exactly where they did, but it's so refreshing. I love hearing them talk about their experiences, good and bad. Man, this episode was such a tearjerker. Oh, there's the train. You can hear the train. I'm so sorry if you can hear the train. I don't know if you can hear it. I can hear it, but okay, anyways. I really loved seeing them be vulnerable. They were talking about the loss of their friend Ben, and also the mix of like doing something for him, like in his honor. And the whole reason behind that is great. I won't, like get into that whole thing because it's just worth the watch to see them talk about why it's important to them. It was very special. You could just tell that the episode was special to them. And that it was in remembrance of this other friend of theirs. Losing a loved one is always difficult, and I really respected them opening up about that. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, though. The squirrel musical, quite literally the most unexpected part of this episode. Like, I'm literally sitting there watching, tears in my eyes, hearing them talk about their grief and their loss of their third best friend. And then we cut to like 4 squirrels in a tree having a crisis and singing. And it's also like a blended family. There's like 3 flying squirrels. There's 1 regular squirrel. They're like, what do we do? Our tree is getting chopped down. Like it was so funny. And I really, really think it did a great job of giving you little breaths of lightness. Just like a little bit of humor to help carry through the pain of grief. And I also think it's such a good example of living with grief, at least for me. There are days that are hard. There are days that are just full of sadness and full of you missing them. And then you have moments where you're laughing and you're remembering all the good memories and you're smiling, or maybe there's a new event that's happening and you're like, man, I really wish this person was here, but you can rejoice in the fact that you did get to experience life with this person. Maybe not anymore, but you still get to have these fresh moments and these bits of laughter and joy and stuff in the midst of your grief. And it's just such a conflicting emotion. And I think they did a good job of showing both the sadness and the joy that can come in those times of thinking about someone that you may have lost. It was such a perfect mixture of comedy and heartbreak. I really liked that story within the story with the squirrels and the meaning behind the episode with Ben. It just made me feel closer to them, it was very raw and vulnerable. And I really, really respect and appreciate that they did that and they poured all of that into this episode. Skipping episode 5 because it's my other favorite. So last episode, episode 6, it's titled, We Made Giant 400-Pound Gummies of Ourselves. This episode felt a little all over the place, if I'm being honest, but it was in a good way. It was chaotic, and again, loved seeing them back in North Carolina. I loved getting to see Link's old truck and them talking about all the memories, good and bad, that they had in it. There are moments where I feel like we can see into their 40-year friendship. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like sometimes you watch and you're like, yeah, they're friends, you can tell they're friends, but then there are some times where you're like, they have lived their entire lives together. And you can see it in how they're responding to this or how they're doing this, whatever. And this episode was kind of like that. I loved the idea of recreating the car crash, but truthfully, I was getting teary-eyed when they ended up crushing the truck at the end. Watching them say goodbye to this piece of their life, really. I mean, I was witnessing just this entire piece of their lives and friendship go away. And I know it had to be hard for them, but I mean, as a fan, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It was really good. And like I said, I mean, you could feel their whole 40-year friendship in that episode and in the series. This episode just reminded me of how far they've come. And I think it was a really good end. Now, we're going to go back to my two favorites. Episode 5's title was We Spent 24 Hours Locked in Red and Blue Rooms. Holy cow. Y'all, I do not have the words. By far, one of the most creative videos I have ever watched in my entire life. First of all, the experimental concept of being locked in rooms of only one color. I loved watching the experiment and how the different colors were making them act. I mean, Rhett was covered in red paint. He was in a red outfit, covered inside of a red room. Link is covered in blue paint and in a blue outfit and inside this blue room. And, they talk about the science behind different little, things of, the color red makes you feel angry or frustrated, and it can also promote this, that, and the other. And then blue, makes you more sad and empathetic and things like that. It was just really cool how they, maneuvered this into an episode that was entertaining, but also kind of thought-provoking about the colors. Also, it broke my heart. We have to talk about this. It broke my heart, the little, scene of them listening to comments from their videos on the internet. I'm sitting there heart wrenching at some of those words. I mean, just like the voiceover, it was saying people can be so mean sometimes. Hearing Link say, I think there was some solid criticism there, especially after the whole Rhett's been carrying Link their whole lives or whatever, that whole little situation, the comment, losing my mind. Absolutely, my heart was hurting for them. Also love seeing Rhett's reactions. He was just so angry, which again goes back to the color theory thing of red, anger, blue, sadness. Rhett throwing the headphones and throwing his shoes, it's such a good little touch of aggravation and irritation. I think they really encompassed their respective emotions that matched with their color so well, and also not in a way that was too much, not in a way that was okay, they're not really feeling this emotion, they're acting, whatever. It was very believable. I also thought it was interesting how the colors were affecting me. I don't know if they did this on purpose or if it's just maybe me reading into it too much or anything. I just wonder if they thought the audience would also start feeling things when they saw the certain colors, because they shift back and forth between shots of just Rhett in the red room and shots of just Link in the blue room. I found that during the experiment, the longer that Rhett was in the red room and the more irritation he got, the more I was getting irritated. I would watch him pitch a fit or do something and I'd be stop being so negative. What are you, in my head, I'm why is he acting like this? Why is he? And I'm getting irritated and frustrated. But then they'd switch to Link in the blue room and he'd be sad and upset. The longer he was in there and the sadder he got and the more lethargic he got, the more sympathetic I was. And so I wonder if they thought audiences are going to play into this little experiment as well with how they're viewing it, how we're showing them this. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it was just cool to see how I, as a viewer, started shifting back and forth in those emotions watching them. Now, the twist in this episode, them waking up snuggling. First of all, thank you. Second of all, the way they instinctively crawled back to their respective sides. It kind of shows how we go back to what's comfortable. We don't necessarily like the unknown or what's different. Seeing them wake up and the walls down and just instinctively going back to their sides, it was such a cool touch. I just loved that. However, we have to talk about the whole anime style fight. So creative, and also it was so entertaining, so funny, but so just well made. The voice dubbing was so good. I recommend this episode to everyone that I pretty much saw, and I recommend it to you. If you don't watch any other one, please watch this one because it's just so cool. Just the sheer concept and execution of it is exceptional, and it deserves every single person on the planet's appreciation. Now, for arguably my favorite episode of the whole series, episode 2, we time traveled to the year 2224. Where do I even start? The costumes, so good, so futuristic, definitely giving what I would think of when I think of future fashion. The story, incredible. The editing, incredible. It was so cinematic. And again, this episode starts out very familiar. They're talking to the camera and they're setting up this like time capsule in the year 2024. And they're just talking like regular, and it's things that we know and all that stuff. And they're just coming up with clues, and it's really fun. But then you have these cuts to future them of what, you know, they think the future will be like, and if they found a way to live long enough. And it was so cool to see how much they think they'll change, but also how similar they feel like they'll be to 2024. Then I don't know. It was very apocalyptic and just cool and futuristic-y. This episode, though, contains so much callback and detail regarding their friendship. I love the idea that they would create a time capsule and stay alive for 200 more years just to open it together. And they also subtly hint at the fact that it's just them two, like that their families didn't also choose to live for however long else. I think that says a lot too. It's very subtle, but definitely says a lot that it's just them two there. I also the quote that Link says, "Wherever you go, I go," crying. Like, crying. And speaking of crying, I genuinely actually sobbed at this episode. I sat in my bed and cried. Is that dramatic? Maybe. But also, how can you not? Especially if you're a fan of them. Come on, the fight they have, Link yelling that Rhett isn't right all the time, it felt so raw and so real. Like, I felt like I was actually watching something that maybe he's wanted to say to him, and that fight was very real. Which, I mean, in 40 years of friendship, you're going to have fighting, you know? And then watching Link die, hello? I was so shocked. I was like, they're not killing him. But then, like, seeing Rhett carry on for the both of them and still going through and trying to find the time capsule for both of them, and he's keeping Link alive in this, like, other chip, and it's also, like, it's harming Rhett's body to keep Link alive, but he's like, no, I have to keep Link alive, and I have to do this together. Hello? It was just so sweet. And the ending, though, Rhett choosing to die instead of living without Link. Hello? Link was telling Rhett to sacrifice his own chip so that Rhett could live, but they can't live without each other. They didn't want to. They didn't even want to. That's what they were saying. Like, they wrote this. They wrote that Rhett would choose to die instead of live without Link. And that Link would say, well, just get rid of me so that you could keep living. Hell, like, I cannot express how much this means to me. And then their chips going into the same time capsule box with the little photo of them. Stop. I was a mess, a wreck. Aside from the incredible storytelling, the edits were incredible. It literally looked cinematic. It looked like a film. And finding out that this was only 28 minutes, like when I was doing my little research and writing down, you know, what I wanted to say, I went back and was looking at the length of it. 28 minutes. They made an entire movie in 28 minutes. And it doesn't feel rushed either. Honestly, it was pure art. It had humor, it had heart, amazing costumes, great story, and it's one of the best things I've seen in a while. This episode was just pure art, takes the cake. Overall, this series is great. Don't worry, I'm not just going to praise them. Don't get me wrong, I love Rhett and Link, and I am a diehard Mythical Beast. But I do have a slight criticism. On this podcast, I really want to try to remain unbiased. Obviously, some things are my favorite, some things aren't, and I'm going to tell you that. Like I've been telling you this whole time, but the way the series was marketed versus the titling of it versus the content was a little confusing for me, because like I can remember them marketing it on their show and talking about it, and it was like this big thing and like this series, and they did a YouTube Red series before, 2 seasons of it, Buddy System. So I guess in my head I was thinking it was going to be somewhat like that, like a scripted comedy series, you know, each episode flows into the other, because they kept saying, you know, it's a season, it's a series. So I'm like, okay, every episode is going to lead into the other one. Like, I'm going to have to watch them in order. But the titles felt more like just regular YouTube video title, and even like the beginnings of them just felt like regular Rhett and Link stuff. But I mean, maybe that was the point, because like I've talked about, there's a few twists and they bring you in with this sense of comfort, like you already know what's going on, and then they twist it. So like that was really cool. So I do think that the titles definitely make sense. I just didn't know what to expect, I guess. I had a different idea of what I thought it was going to be, and then it wasn't, and then it was better than what I thought it was going to be. So I guess that's really not a criticism. That's just me talking about like how confused I was. The title of it, I genuinely have no words to tell you of like how I feel about the title. I just am like, I say the title and I'm like, yeah, Wonderhole. I don't know about the title. Like I was saying, what it was marketed as versus what. I definitely think that it was a good idea to like have you come in thinking this and then they can surprise you and twist and do all that stuff. So I definitely think that was a good idea. I was just confused at first going into it. But after you watch the first episode, you kind of get the gist. But then the second episode is completely different. We're not going to get back into it. At the end of the last episode, it does like cut back to a clip of them from the first episode on the deserted island. That sort of does help with the whole cohesion thing. Rhett is like pulling Link out of his thoughts in that little cutscene at the end of episode 6. And so then you're like, oh, was this all a dream? Was this all something that Link made up in his head? Was this all something that they just like created with the little coconuts that they're using as cameras? It was really cute to have that at the end to kind of tie the whole thing up in a little bow. So those are my thoughts on Wonderhole. This series was a 5 out of 5 for me. So it is certified delicious. Not just saying that because I'm a mythical beast. I don't rank everything that they give 5 out of 5s always, so don't even start. But this really was my favorite thing that they've ever made, ever. I'm so proud to be a fan of theirs. Now, time for Pickles Pick of the week. This past week, I was struggling to figure out what I was going to pick, so I kind of have two. Sparks by Coldplay is the song. Specifically, the cover, adding the saxophone in, it's been all over TikTok. The cover's by Evan Jacobson. Unreal. The other one is, I don't know if you guys have seen these, they were also on TikTok. This is a snack, food, candy, whatever. I had seen a bunch of videos of people trying these, like, they're called Silky Gem crystal candies, but I ordered the ones that have jam in the middle because I was like, jam? That sounds good. I got the Jam Me Up box. Came with 6 of them, and they were pretty big. And it also came with this, like, little sour candy powder. Really good. Super sour. Like, I might order some more. I ate the whole box in 2 days. Not even 2 full days. Check out Silky Gem crystal candy. Not a sponsor. I mean, obviously, this is episode 2. We don't have a sponsor. Also, I have to put a disclaimer on my Pickles Pick for last week. I said that Nancy Sinatra was Frank Sinatra's sister. That is not true. Nancy Sinatra is Frank Sinatra's daughter, not sister. I am so sorry for the false information. I literally freaked out when I learned about that, and I was about to delete the entire episode. Like, I was about to get rid of it, but then my mom told me it was not a big deal. Quite literally said, not a big deal. So I just wanted to correct it here. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you'd like for me to review next. And yeah, it's time to close the jar. Bye.